In the quiet summer of 1901, two respectable women from Oxford, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, embarked on a journey that would become one of the strangest and most enduring mysteries in modern history. What began as an ordinary visit to the Palace of Versailles would turn into an experience that defied all logic, a haunting encounter that still baffles historians and skeptics alike. Charlotte Moberly was the principal of St. Hugh's College, Oxford. A woman of intellect and discipline, she had spent years shaping young minds and building a reputation for her academic rigor. Eleanor Jourdain, equally scholarly, was her assistant and soon-to-be vice principal. Both were rational, educated women, unlikely candidates for tales of the supernatural or time travel. On August 10, 1901, the two friends decided to visit the Petit Trianon, a small chateau within the grounds of Versailles, once beloved by Queen Marie Antoinette herself. The sun hung bright in the sky as they walked through the palace gardens, the gravel crunching under their shoes. They carried simple travel gear, no cameras, no guides, just curiosity and a summer afternoon to spare. But something, as they would later recall, felt strange. The light seemed dull, almost as though filtered through an unseen mist. The warmth of the day had suddenly faded, replaced by a still, heavy air. The vibrant gardens appeared muted, as if drained of their natural color. As they wandered off the main path in search of the Petit Trianon, they encountered men in long green coats and tricorn hats, clothing unmistakably out of fashion for 1901. The men stood silently, their faces expressionless as though frozen in another time. One of them motioned the women toward a path that wound deeper into the estate. Without questioning, they followed. The two women felt uneasy, yet compelled to continue. Jourdain later wrote that the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive, like walking through a dream. Moberly described it as if everything suddenly became unnatural. Even the trees seemed flat and lifeless. Then, in the distance, they saw a small pavilion and a woman sketching on the grass. She wore a large white hat and a light flowing dress of pale green, fashion unmistakably from the late 18th century. For a brief moment, Moberly locked eyes with her. She would later say she felt a wave of intense sadness, as though the woman's presence carried the weight of doom. Only years later, upon seeing a portrait, did Moberly insist that the woman she had seen was none other than Queen Marie Antoinette herself, moments before her arrest and tragic fate during the French Revolution. The two women finally reached the Petit Trianon, but when they entered, the strange figures vanished. The light returned to normal. The spell, whatever it had been, was broken. They told no one at first. Both women were hesitant to share what they had seen, afraid of ridicule or worse, of being dismissed as delusional. It wasn't until months later that they began to piece together their separate memories, realizing how consistent and vivid their experiences had been. In 1911, they published a book anonymously under the title An Adventure. In it, they detailed their journey, suggesting that they might have somehow slipped through time, back to the 1780s, to the very days before the fall of the French monarchy. The book caused an uproar. Critics dismissed it as a hallucination, a fantasy born of overwork or suggestibility. Others believed it was an elaborate hoax, but some historians and psychic researchers found the account disturbingly plausible. The women's detailed descriptions of Versailles, its layout, the costumes, the atmosphere, matched historical records not easily accessible to the public at the time. Moberly and Jourdain stood by their story until their deaths. They never recanted. They truly believed they had walked into another time. But how could such a thing happen? Some have argued that the two women experienced a shared delusion, perhaps brought on by exhaustion and the intense summer heat. Psychologists have suggested folie à deux, a rare condition where two people share the same hallucination. Yet even this doesn't explain the historical accuracy of what they described. Others proposed that they had unknowingly stumbled into a psychic imprint, a residual haunting, where the emotional energy of past events replays itself like a recording. Versailles, with its centuries of tragedy and passion, could easily be such a place. Then there are those who whisper of time slips, rare moments where the boundaries between past and present blur. Witnesses in other parts of the world have reported similar phenomena, people briefly stepping into a different era, then returning as if nothing had happened. In 1957, paranormal researcher Philippe Julian revisited their story. He found several witnesses who recalled strange occurrences near the Petit Trianon in the same period. Odd mists, voices, even apparitions in 18th century dress. None could explain them. The scientific community, of course, remained skeptical. Yet every attempt to disprove the Moberly Jourdain incident leaves behind more questions than answers. Why did two respected academics risk their reputations for a lie? How did they describe historical details unknown to them? And why did the air grow heavy and silent, as though time itself had paused? Even the smallest clues add to the mystery. In their diaries, both women mentioned hearing faint sounds, music from invisible instruments, laughter from distant voices. When later compared to accounts from 18th century Versailles, the locations and sounds matched the descriptions of areas used for royal parties. Was it imagination or memory somehow embedded in the land itself? Over the decades, the story has taken on legendary status. It has inspired books, documentaries, and countless theories. To this day, paranormal investigators still visit the Petit Trianon, hoping to catch a glimpse of the past lingering in the present. Modern physicists, too, have entertained stranger possibilities. The concept of time as a flexible dimension, something that can fold, bend, or overlap, has become a legitimate field of study. Could the two women have unknowingly stepped into a momentary rift between timelines? Dr. Ronald Mallet, a theoretical physicist, once said, "If time is not linear but a landscape, then perhaps certain places still hold doorways to other eras. Perhaps Versailles, steeped in emotion and history, is one such doorway." Imagine walking through a garden and stepping not into the present, but into another century, unaware until you look up and realize the world around you has changed. If what Moberly and Jourdain experienced was real, it challenges everything we understand about time, perception, and reality itself. Their story remains untouched by exaggeration. They never sought fame or fortune. In fact, they avoided the public eye. They continued their academic careers steadfast and quiet until their deaths. But the memory of that day in 1901 haunted them both forever. Many years later, when researchers retraced their steps through the gardens, they found something peculiar. The path that Moberly and Jourdain claimed to have taken, lined with old trees and a small pavilion, did not exist in 1901 maps. It had existed in the 1770s. The same layout vanished after the French Revolution when the grounds were redesigned. That single fact reignited the debate. How could they have described something that no longer existed in their time? Some say they passed through a temporal echo, a thin veil between moments. Others think it was divine intervention, or a cosmic glitch revealing how fragile our perception of time truly is. But perhaps the simplest explanation is the most haunting. Maybe the past never truly disappears, it only hides, waiting for someone to wander into it. Even now, more than a century later, tourists at Versailles report strange sensations. A sudden chill in the garden, the feeling of being watched, the faint sound of a harpsichord drifting through the air, and sometimes, just for an instant, the glimpse of a figure in 18th century dress vanishing when approached. Is it imagination, or proof that the boundary between past and present is thinner than we think? Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain's tale remains one of history's most compelling enigmas, a story that refuses to fade, as timeless as the gardens of Versailles themselves. So the next time you walk through an old place, pause for a moment. Listen carefully. You might hear whispers from another century, footsteps from those who came before us, still echoing through time. Because perhaps, just perhaps, time isn't something we travel through. Maybe it travels through us. And somewhere, on that quiet August afternoon in 1901, two women are still walking through the gardens of Versailles, forever caught between centuries. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to subscribe because many more forgotten mysteries and historical secrets are waiting to be uncovered. Turn on the bell icon so you never miss a journey through time. This is Forsaken Past, where history whispers and the past lives again.